Hey, I'm Pawn, a late diagnosed autistic human being from France living in the UK. I make videos about my own experience as a late diagnosed autistic person, and today I'm making another autism test video. I know, I just made one, literally, like, I filmed it a couple days ago where I took the Aspie quiz. I just watched the video that Sam posted today in which she was taking the monotropism test. And I've heard about monotropism before, mainly on Meg's channel. I'm autistic now, what? But I didn't really, I don't know, I guess I didn't really grasp the concept, or didn't necessarily click for me, which is also what Sam explains in her video, that she didn't initially recognize herself in the test. And I just thought, you know what, let's just take the test for the first time and record it and share it on YouTube. And I'm interested to see the result that I'm gonna get. I feel like from what I've seen in that video, I already know I'm gonna answer certain questions completely differently because she has ADHD as well. I don't have ADHD. I do feel it influences the way that autism presents. On the other hand, there are going to be answers that are probably the same because we're both autistic, but every autistic is different. Every autistic person is different. When you've met an autistic person, you've only met one autistic person. Okay, just got that out of the way. So let's get into it. So monotropism, just in case you're not aware, is a theory of autism. I will link the video that Meg made about it down below because she explains it in depth. So I'm not going to explain it now, I'm just going to take the test. Okay, and I already know that some of the questions are very similar to some of the questions from the Aspie quiz, so that's gonna be interesting. First question is, after a period of instability, I need a quiet and predictable environment. And they rephrase each question in case you need a bit more clarity, and it does help because some of the questions I took awfully literally. Like at one point they use the word physically, and I really thought like physically in my body, but they didn't really mean physically. I think every test should have like a rephrasing. So the rephrasing is, after chaotic situations or too much socializing, you need to decompress and be alone. Yeah, definitely. And if I didn't have that rewording, I think I would have thought that a period of instability meant like a longer period of time. For example, in 2021, my partner and I basically didn't have a home anymore. We were like backpacking, well, living out of our backpacks, but driving across Europe, going from Airbnb to Airbnb, going to a different place every month, basically, staying in a different place every month. So that's what I would consider a period of instability for me, and it was extremely distressing for me. And so when we came back to the UK 2 years ago in 2022, that was such a huge sense of relief for me to finally have a place to call my own, even though we were renting, but a place where we could stay for a long period of time, not have to move again. And like, still now 2 years on, I'm really struggling to bring myself to move again, so I really needed that quiet and predictable environment. But apparently what they mean is like more in the context of small, like shorter periods of times, too much socializing and stuff. So yeah, definitely I need to decompress and be alone. Strongly agree. I need a quiet and predictable environment for me to switch from one task to another easily. Translation: transitions are hard for adults with autism. Moving from one task to another is hard unless you're in a quiet space. I'm trying to remember the last time I had to switch tasks in a busy, noisy environment, and I can't remember. I think I agree with Sam on that one, which is that I don't struggle with transitions in that way. I'm gonna say disagree on that one, because yeah, I don't think the environment I'm in and how busy or calm it is impacts my ability to switch tasks. Like if I'm imagining, for example, being in a busy coffee shop and like I'm working on my computer and like I go from writing an email to editing a video, I don't think the fact that I'm in a busy coffee shop is gonna impact my ability to switch between those tasks. So no, I'm gonna disagree. I often struggle to concentrate in busy and or unpredictable environments. Again, I haven't been in one of those environments in a long time, and it depends on what I'm doing again, because like if I'm doing a task that I don't really like, that I'm not really interested in, I'm gonna struggle to focus on it regardless of my environment, I feel like. But if I'm really focused on something, I don't think it matters too much whether I'm in a busy and or unpredictable environment. I'm gonna say neither agree nor disagree. 4, I find sudden unexpected disruptions to my attention startling. Translation: if I'm interrupted suddenly by someone or something, I'm upset and lose focus easily. Again, it depends on what I'm doing and like how sharp my cognitive skills are. In the past, yeah, I would have been, I don't like being interrupted in what I'm doing, but the fact that I lose focus easily, I'm gonna say neither agree nor disagree again, because I feel like I don't like being interrupted, but I think I wouldn't struggle too much with staying focused on what I'm doing. But again, it depends on what I'm doing and stuff like that, and how I'm feeling on that day, stuff like that. 5, it's just distressing to be unexpectedly pulled away from something I'm engaged in. I'm gonna say agree, because it is not a nice feeling, but I'll be okay. Definitely when I was younger, I focused on my special interests a lot more strongly. Really hated being like whenever my mom would say like dinner's ready and stuff, like she would have to like keep asking me to come down for dinner repeatedly for me to do so, because I was so stuck on what I was doing, and it would get me really upset, and like I would shout at her and stuff like that. So I'm gonna say agree. I don't find eye contact uncomfortable while talking to someone. The translation is I do not have a problem with eye contact. So I'm gonna say disagree. I do have a problem with eye contact. I don't find eye contact comfortable. I feel like when people make eye contact with me, I feel like they're staring into my soul. I feel naked. I don't know, it feels really intrusive and uncomfortable. And I tend to avoid it as much as possible with most people. And I feel like there have been maybe 2 people in my life that I felt comfortable looking into their eyes and for them to look into mine, and those were the people I love the most on this earth, to be honest. That was my great aunt, passed away last year, and my partner, whom I've been with for over 8 years now. I don't mind eye contact with these 2 people, but everybody else, yeah, I really struggle with that. As part of my mask, I force eye contact a lot more than I would be comfortable to. I often notice details that others do not. Translation: you see changes in people's appearance or in your work/living space easily and quickly. I like how they said specifically like people's appearance or your work living space. I do think I'm pretty good at noticing details. I'm pretty detail oriented for sure. I would say agree. Involvement in an activity of interest often reduces my anxiety level, meaning I'm most calm when engaged in an activity that I really love. So this one depends, because, and I've mentioned that in past videos, but for example, I have a special interest in all things fantasy, and ever since I was a little kid, I've been writing stories. But these past few years, as an adult, with, you know, more stress from societal expectations and stuff, and a burnout, autistic burnout, I have been struggling to engage in writing as much as I'd like to. I still very much have the urge and the willingness, that fire burning inside me, but I just struggle to do it, and when I do it, it's not always a pleasant experience and it doesn't really go very far. So like, it's one of those things where it's a special interest of mine, but engaging in it can be a source of anxiety for me. Similarly, if I'm not in the right mindset, playing a game that I'm super into might not relax me, might make me more anxious, because I'm just not, that's not what I need in the moment. I'm gonna say neither agree nor disagree. I don't feel like it often has like a strong impact on my anxiety. It can bring me joy and fulfillment, but I find social interactions more comfortable if communicating about a topic of interest to me, meaning I prefer to talk about topics I'm interested in and feel more comfortable when doing this. Of course, yeah, that seems pretty logical to me. I'm gonna strongly agree. Like, I used to, before I found out I was autistic, I used to tell my partner, like, I tried like going to meetups and social events. That makes me smile just because like, that is so unlike me, and I was forcing myself so hard to socialize and make friends, and that goes so much against my nature. But anyway, and I would struggle with these events. I wouldn't go more than once or twice, and I would always say like, I wish there was, which is why I liked Meetup and stuff like that, because the app Meetup, because I was like, I would rather gather with other people around a topic of interest. For example, you know, if we had a dog, like going dog walking with other people, or playing board games, or like, I'm not saying that I would have an easy time doing that, but at least I would feel more comfortable having a topic in common with all these people, having an activity to do with these people, rather than just sitting at a table talking and just getting to know each other. I'm often totally focused on activities I'm passionate about, to the point I'm unaware of other events. Translation, I get obsessed with things and hyper-focus on them and lose touch with anything else going on around me. Yeah, it's definitely happened in my life. Yeah, lose touch with anything else going on around me. I don't have the hyper-focus thing because I'm not ADHD, but there have indeed been times when I focused really hard on something that I'm still to this day, like, when I'm editing one of these videos, I can spend hours on it without realizing it. But does that mean that I am unaware of other events? I'm gonna say neither agree nor disagree. I can get quite good at something even if I'm not especially interested in it. So I don't think so. That's one of the struggles I had at school. I generally had good grades, but I mean, I had drastically better grades in the topics I was interested in. For example, I never liked Spanish for some reason. I loved English and stuff like that, and French, but Spanish never spoke to me, the language. And so I always struggled to, like, even like I studied Spanish for 8 years. 8 years is a lot. I can barely hold a basic conversation. I don't even think I can hold a basic conversation. Like, I can understand a bit more than I can speak it, but like, my Spanish is pretty terrible. So I would disagree. I often lose sense of time when engaging in activities I'm passionate about. So again, I don't have time blindness, but I do sometimes, like, I can easily like spend 3-4 hours working on something, and like, it feels like, yeah, like I get lost into it, you know? I get lost in it, so I'm gonna say agree. I sometimes avoid talking because I cannot reliably predict how others will react, especially strangers. So we had that same question in the Ask Me quiz, and I said that I avoid talking, especially with strangers in general. Whether it is because I cannot reliably predict how they will react, I don't know, but I'm gonna say agree. I tend to do activities because I find them interesting instead of due to societal expectations. That's a no-brainer, strongly agree. Translation is, I engage in activities I like, even if others find it weird. I never really cared about that. As a 10-year-old, I was obsessed with snails. Nobody understood it. I loved it. As a 16-year-old, I was really into Arabian horses. Nobody in my high school understood it. I didn't care. And when I was obsessed with like the Victorian goth fashion style, everybody thought it was weird, but I didn't care. You get the idea. I rarely find social situations chaotic. Translation: the question is asking if you like social situations. So that's like a good one of like literal thinking, and Sam did the same thing. We were like, chaotic? What do they mean chaotic? And usually it's a lot more straightforward than it seems with those questions, but I always think like, why, like, you know, you're potentially talking to a bunch of autistic people who tend to take things literally. Why don't you make your, like, why don't you say, do you like social situations? Obviously I don't. Strongly disagree. I don't mind if someone interrupts me when I'm in the middle of an activity. I don't mind being interrupted when I'm focused on an activity. I can be flexible and switch to a new task easily. Oh, I wouldn't say that I don't mind. I'm gonna disagree. When I'm working on something, I'm open to helpful suggestions. I'm open to collaborative work and don't mind others' assistance. So I've had to work on it, which I mentioned in my video taking the ASPE quiz. I've had to work on that because I was really bad at like taking feedback and stuff. I would always be super bossy and be like, my way of seeing things is the best way of seeing things, and like my vision for this project is like the best one, and like I don't care what anyone else says. I have grown since then and like realized that feedback can be very important. Doesn't mean I find it easy. Like if I look at the translation, I'm open to collaborative work and don't mind others' assistance. I'm gonna say disagree because I do mind a lot of the time. It's just I have learned to kind of tolerate it. I often find it difficult to switch topics after engaging in an activity for a long time. Translation: I get so focused on something I enjoy, I find it difficult to switch to something else. If I've been playing a video game I really like right now I'm really obsessed with, like I have been obsessed since it came out last year. For the past year I've been obsessed with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I have over 225 hours on it. I'm reaching the end of it. Well, reaching the end. I still have a lot to do, but like I've done a lot already. But I spend several hours playing that game every day. It's one of my current like special interests. Or I can spend a long time consuming things on autism and things like that. But like, if like I realize it's time to go make lunch, for example, because I need to get food into my system, or I feel like really like icky about my personal hygiene and I really need to take a shower or whatever, I don't struggle with switching tasks too much. So I'm gonna disagree. I don't find it difficult to switch topics. I often engage in activities I'm passionate about to escape from from anxiety. So I just had to interrupt the video. It's funny because I was just answering these questions being like, yeah, I guess I do find it annoying when I'm interrupted, I don't know, and then I got interrupted by my partner and my cat, which rarely happens while I'm filming a video. And I got so upset about it, and I was so like irritated and like grumpy and stuff, and I'm like, I do get upset, don't I? Okay, let's come back to it. The question is, I often engage in activities I'm passionate about to escape from anxiety. I'm gonna say neither agree nor disagree because like it's mostly for enjoyment and fulfillment for me. It can impact my anxiety levels. It might not always, although like I do listen to ASMR like every single day, often several times a day, to relieve my anxiety. I would say agree on that one. Routines provide an important source of stability and safety. Yes, I would say so. I'm not gonna strongly I'm not gonna strongly agree though, because they can get a bit. I'm gonna make a whole video on like insistence on sameness and rigid thinking. For me, like I do have lots of routines and rituals and stuff. At times it can feel a little bit claustrophobic or a little bit like a prison. I would say for the most part they're a source of stability and safety, yeah. I manage uncertainty by creating routines. I'm gonna say I neither agree nor disagree because I don't know that I specifically create routines with the goal of managing uncertainty, but I guess it kind of is a consequence of it, an unconscious thing. I often experience anxiety over matters I have little certainty over, meaning I get anxious over things I can't control, or I get anxious if I don't know the plan. Strongly agree about that. That's a big issue of mine. I find it difficult to engage in a task of no interest to me, even if it's important. So yeah, I often find engaging in stimming to be relaxing. So some of it is relaxing. Again, I talked about this in Aspie when I took the Aspie quiz, I think. I was talking about, oh no, that was my fidget toy collection, whatever. I talked about how stim toys, fidget toys are not necessarily a source of relaxation for me, but more like fun and joy. But like other stims, rocking or bouncing my leg or anything like that, do provide like stress relief. So I'm gonna say agree. I'm usually passionate about a few topics at any one time in my life. I get hyper-focused on one or two things at a time for long periods. Yes, I'm gonna say I strongly agree. I have trouble filtering out sounds when I'm not, in capital letters, doing something I'm focused on. Meaning if I'm doing something I'm not passionate about or interested in, I have trouble filtering out random noises. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a time when I might not be bothered by a sound, a random noise. I would say I agree, yeah. I usually mean what I say and no more than that. I like to think I'm pretty literal, yeah. I rarely have subtext in what I'm saying, or I'm gonna say agree. I'm usually an open book. Like usually like you'll know if I like you or not. It's really hard for me to hide it, for example. And I'm not gonna say like for example, if I'm thirsty, I'm gonna say, I'm thirsty, could you go grab me a glass of water? I'm not gonna be one of those people who go like, a drink would be nice right now. And actually what they mean is go get me a glass of water. Because if you say that to me, like it happened the other day again, if you say something like that to me, I won't like register that you're asking me to go get a glass of water, you know what I mean? So I don't really do that. I often engage in lengthy discussions on topics I find interesting, even though my conversational partners do not. It definitely happened more when I was younger and maybe less high masking. I remember several occasions where either with family members or friends or just acquaintances, I would go on monologues about the things I was interested in, even though they weren't really interested in those things. Now as an adult, I mean, I don't socialize enough to kind of see that observe that often in my life, and like it's part of my masking that I won't necessarily do that because I don't want to be, perceived as odd or something. But I'm gonna say agree because it's definitely like, I mean, I still do that, I guess, when I talk with my in-laws, for example, on the phone or in person. You get me started on autism or something like that, and I'm passionate about, I don't know, gender, sexuality, things like that, social constructs. I will probably speak a lot, probably very fast as well, because I'm scared of being interrupted, so I'm trying to get as much out as possible. And usually I can't manage to say as much as I wanted to before being interrupted or moving on to a different subject, which is really frustrating for me, which is why I love making videos, because no one's interrupting me right now. I can talk as much as I want. I sometimes accidentally say something others find offensive, rude when I'm focused on a task, meaning people say I'm rude at times, even though I don't think I'm being rude, or you get the vibe that what you said was taken poorly by the other person. Yeah, I would definitely agree. There have been times when, like for example, I had a huge argument with my mother-in-law many years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, where like she was basically defending like a far-right politician, French politician, And I'm really like, I'm strongly opinionated. I'm strongly opinionated. And I was like saying how like it's ridiculous to like follow that kind of political agenda and things like that. And like I was just expressing what felt right to me, you know, like. And then she was like, oh, you're so stubborn, or I don't remember what the word was that she used. And I just left the table, went outside for the rest, and we were at a restaurant and it was her birthday, so that was really embarrassing. And I basically had to wait for them to leave the restaurant to go to the car to go home, and the whole time we didn't talk or anything. And I ended up leaving and like writing her a letter to apologize and say how we were both in the wrong. I don't know, it's a whole story. I can sometimes be very distressed by a topic that others think of as trivial, meaning you get bothered by things that other people are not interested in. This topic could be something that you think is not fair or unjust that others don't seem to be bothered about. Yeah, definitely. Like a lot of the time I'm like, because my sense of justice and right and wrong is so strong, like I know some autistic people are like, it's kind of a stereotype that autistic people have a strong sense of right and wrong, but like, no, that defines me perfectly. Again, I'll talk about that more when I make my video on rigid thinking, but I get very invested in the things I believe in. And the things that I believe are like years before I was diagnosed, I was always quoting, do what's right, not what's easy. That's my motto in life. Like, and I would always quote it to people. Yeah, I often get very like emotionally invested in certain topics, especially if it's something that I consider to be not fair. Like, for example, I don't eat meat, and I am like getting closer to being vegan as time goes on. Like, I've considerably reduced my intake of animal products over the last couple of years, like dairy products and eggs and honey and stuff like that, because I'm so passionate about animals and I'm so against animal cruelty and stuff. I see like most people around me are like, they say they love animals so much and they can't stand it when they see animals suffering on the TV and stuff, but then they go and eat a slice of lamb and they don't have an issue with that. And I'm like, it can make me, yeah, I get very emotional, and because it matters so much to me, and I have lots of examples like that. And most people are like, yeah, I agree, it's a problem in our society, but then they just go on with their lives and they don't do anything about it. And I'm like, do you actually care, or do you just say that you care but you really don't? I can tell like that just got my heart pumping, you know. I find it easy to keep up with group discussions where everyone is speaking. So like, again, I think this question was in the ASPI quiz. Do you mean like everyone is talking at the same time? If everyone is speaking at the same time, I would guess it's not easy for anyone to follow what's going on. But if people are speaking in turn, like if everyone is talking at the same time, I don't see how it would be easy to keep up. I'm going to disagree. Often when I'm focused on activities, I do not notice I'm thirsty or hungry, so I have very poor interoception. It's basically the exact opposite of Sam, as she was saying in her video taking this test. She was like, I have very strong interoception. I'm basically the opposite of that. I have very poor interoception. I talked about it in my video on sensory sensitivities. I basically don't get like thirst and hunger signals. I have to have a whole routine to keep myself fed and hydrated. I don't notice I'm thirsty or hungry ever, not just when I'm focused on activities. So I would strongly agree. Often when I'm focused on activities, I do not notice I need the bathroom. I would say I'm pretty good at knowing whether I need the bathroom, I would say. I disagree. When there's a... hang on, because when I'm focused on activities though, yeah, I'm gonna say agree. Because if I'm focused on something, like for example, if I'm having a really intense conversation with my in-laws over the phone, who are the only people I talk to besides my partner. I usually like don't go to the bathroom for a really long time. But is it that I don't notice? It's partly that I don't notice, and if I do notice, I'll ignore it because I don't want to, like, I have FOMO. I don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation because I'm afraid that if I leave the room, my partner and his parents are going to start talking about another topic. So I wait until the topic has changed and it's a topic I'm not interested in, and then I go to the loo. It's a whole thing. When there's a lot of information to consider, I often struggle to make a decision. Yes, I agree, which is why I find it so much easier to eat at restaurants now that I'm a vegetarian, for example. Beforehand, I could get a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of options on the menu and like get like decision paralysis, or like whenever I have to decide which movie I'm gonna watch, like it's a whole nightmare. So yeah, I'm gonna agree. Sometimes making a decision is so hard, I get physically stuck. So you get paralyzed by some hard decisions. This doesn't mean physically unable to move, but you really can't do anything until the decision is made. So here, like, that's a good example. Like, you're talking to autistic people and you're using figurative language. If you don't mean physically, don't write physically. That does describe me pretty well. I sometimes focus on an incident for a substantial time, days after the event. Strongly agree. I sometimes become highly anxious by focusing on the many possible situations that might occur at a future event. I strongly agree. Sometimes when I'm focused on an activity, I do not recall all the information I might need to make good decisions. That one confuses me. I'm not sure what that means when I say neither agree nor disagree. People tell me I get fixated on things. Yeah, I've often been told in my life, like, that I go on and on about something. I find a problem I can't solve distressing and or hard to put down. I agree. You get obsessed with a problem and need to solve it or pursue the information relentlessly. Yeah, usually when there's a problem or a situation that needs my attention in my life, like they said, like, it paralyzes me until I've figured it out. And I struggle to like put it off to the side and enjoy my day. Like, I'll think about it constantly, you know, and like compulsively trying to find a solution, which it affects every aspect of my life. For example, when I was, you know, trying to figure out why life was so hard for me. Again, it was relentless and I could not really enjoy life until I had answers about my trauma, until I had answers about my autism, you know. So I'm going to say strongly agree. I tend to feel quite self-conscious unless I'm deeply absorbed in a task. You tend to be self-conscious unless you're passionate and deeply excited about something. Honestly, I am very self-conscious in general, and I'm not sure that being absorbed in a task makes a difference. Because usually if I'm deeply absorbed in a task, I'm on my own. And so when I'm on my own, I'm a lot less self-conscious than when I'm around people. And when I'm around people, I'm not deeply absorbed in what I'm doing because I'm so self-conscious. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. Hang on. I'm gonna say neither agree nor disagree because I'm confused by this question. I often get stuck thinking about all the possibilities that might come out of a decision. I would say I agree. Like, for example, that's been bothering me these past few months. We've been thinking about moving, possibly to another country, and like every time we're on the verge of making a decision and going through with it, I'm like imagining all that it's gonna entail, and like they say, like, I get stuck thinking about it. When I'm interested in something, I tend to be passionate about it. I agree, although there are subjects that, you know, that you hear lots of theories about it. Some autistic people say they're unable to be interested in something or enjoy something without it becoming an intense special interest. Some people say they have both passions or topics of interest and special interests, and they can like differentiate the two. And I think that's my case. Like, I definitely have things that I enjoy or that I'm interested in Does that necessarily mean that I become obsessively passionate about it and it becomes a special interest? No. A lot of the time it does though. When I'm interested in a topic, I like to learn everything I can about that topic. So I'm gonna say I agree. Where, like, for example, I've been passionate about autism for the past 6 months, ever since I started my autism diagnosis journey. I have been like consuming content on autism every single day, pretty much, like either watching videos, making my own videos, reading books, reading Reddit subreddit posts, talking about it with my partner and my in-laws, reading stuff online, like and I've learned a lot. And in the past it was the same, like whenever, like I mentioned that in my video on special interests, but like when I was around 10-12 years old, I was obsessed with snails, and so I learned a lot of stuff about snails and even wrote a book about it. Little baby me wrote a book on snails and I was so proud of it. I showed it to like secondary school teachers that my mom was friends with. I was so proud. I was like, I'm gonna get it published. And then as a teenager, I was obsessed with like Arabian horses and like horse breeding, and I knew so much about the topic. I could like legit hold conversations with professionals in the area. Like I would talk to breeders online, like professional breeders online, and then they would find out about my age and they would be like, what? You're only 16? I thought you were 40 and like had 20 years of experience behind you. And I'm like, nope, I'm just passionate. My dad is the same. I remember him telling me when I was a kid, and he would put a lot of pressure on me because he would say things like, when you really like something, you become obsessive about it. And I'm like, that's a very autistic way of looking at things. I'm still fascinated by many of the things I was interested in when I was much younger. Yes, I strongly agree. As a kid, I was passionate about fantasy movies, fantasy books, the fantasy stories that I wrote myself, fantasy games, just anything fantasy really. And I'm still very much passionate about that. Like I watched the first Harry Potter movie in the cinema when I was 4, and I'm still passionate about Harry Potter. Like I wear Harry Potter t-shirts pretty much every day of my life. Like, yeah. I rarely find myself getting stuck in loops of thought. I do not get stuck in repetitive thoughts about a topic. No, I'm gonna have to disagree on that. I've talked about that on my channel in the past. I think I do get stuck in loops of thoughts, and I really identified with that with it when Meg talked about it in one of her videos, how she tends to get stuck in loops of thought. I do get that a lot, where I'm like, it feels like I've come to some kind of conclusion, talking it through with my partner, and then the next day I'm back where I started and like have to do the whole mental process again, and like I often loop back to previous thoughts. I would say I agree. Okay, let's see the results now. Okay, so I got 190 rating scale, score 190. The average score of others with a previous diagnosis of autism is 188. If you score above 178, this indicates your scores are similar to others with autism. So I definitely above the average score of autistic people. So yeah, I'm definitely monotropic. That's good to know. I feel like that questionnaire kind of helped me understand the whole concept of monotropism better than previous explanations on monotropism I read. That was fun. If you take this test, I'll put it down below. If you take this test and you want to share the results in the comments, feel free to do so, and then we can discuss it. Those are fun. You know, I might make other questionnaire videos in the future. Thank you for subscribing, watching, commenting, and liking this video. I do have a Ko-fi page linked down below if you'd like to support my channel monetarily, which would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!